block to the blockchain. I yield farm and I mean trade. On Pulse chain, I just DCA the block for the DeFi. Shout out to the whole gang. From the block to the blockchain. I yield farm and I mean trade. On Pulse chain, I just DCA the block for the DeFi. Shout out to the whole gang.
What it do, baby? It's your boy Blockhead, bringing you the absolute best in DeFi. I'm not going to say this twice, but this is not financial advice. Today, we got another OG on the channel. In the past couple of weeks, it's been about maximalism and post-chain itself. So, with further ado, I'll bring our guest on stage, Mr. Access Alive. My man, how you doing?
Doing great, my man. Thanks for having me. Welcome to the streaming community. I've seen you around a little bit here the last few weeks. I actually got turned on by your Chris. You were in like the crypto mastermind group. That's Frank's group, and I think you were on with Coach last week, weren't you? Or was that 2 weeks ago?
Coach was my first guest 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then that's where I found out about you. And so then I thought you had some interesting talking points, and I think I stepped in there and said, we exchanged some words, and here I am.
Yeah, man. Thanks for showing up. So these past couple of weeks, you know, I've brought some maxis on chain or maxis on stream, and we've been just talking about the different mindsets it takes to win. But you brought up a really good point, and I wanted to dive into it. What does merit mean to you, and how do you find how do you distinguish who has merit and who doesn't on the chain?
Yeah, so from the outside looking in, if you're coming into cryptocurrency, and this is interesting because I just had a conversation with a stock guy last night at my local gym here about his experience in crypto, and he's going on about his dividend stocks, right? I think when he was a teenager, his grandpa gave him some McDonald's stock, and it's been paying dividends ever since. And I think it was in 2020 he got into Voyager. And if you know anything about what happened in 2022, like Voyager, BlockFi, Celsius, they all blew up because they were just over leveraged, and you were basically giving up custody of your coins to lending platforms that were producing these like really high APRs. So like everyone thought that they were making all this money, but there was just a tremendous amount of systemic risk in the ecosystem and in the infrastructure of those companies. And that's why people like yourself and myself and other DeFi aficionados really enjoy Pulse Chain and DeFi platforms, is because you're not subject to the same kinds of risks. That doesn't mean that it's any easier to get to know and understand these systems off the rip. But if you just know what to look for in regards to merit, it does help paint a picture of what may or may not be a good thing, or it may help you understand what is more or less risky. Like in the traditional finance world, in those systems, like even on centralized exchanges, it's like looking into a black box. You can't see what's inside behind the exchange. Like you don't know what their balance sheets look like. You don't know how much leverage the exchanges are taking on. But on DeFi, when you look at the coins in your wallet, they're actually there in your wallet, and nobody can take them away from you so long as your private key is secured, right? And so the risk is completely different on a blockchain. On DeFi, the risk is now, are you buying into things that have a long shelf life? Like, are you buying into coins that have utility or purpose for existing, or a strong founder with a big plan of things that they want to develop over the long term? Are the economics of those systems really sound? Those are the kinds of questions that you would be asking to find out, well, what gives a token merit, or what gives a blockchain merit?
And that's what makes DeFi a little different, because we can set the price, we determine the value, and we're kind of like the bookie of our sports book, essentially.
Right. So in Pulse Chain, it's fun to really break it down, kind of like looking at coins for their how competitive they are. So if we think of it like, I use this analogy in the green room with you, like it's really just a bunch of sports teams competing against each other for more space on the blockchain. That's really what's going on here. So like, how can you tell if one team is better than the other? Well, you can measure these things by certain data points, like how much liquidity is there, how many users are there, what's the growth rate look like of adoption for a certain token. That stuff is going to be indicative of whether a coin, how long has the coin been around for? If it's been around for 2+ years and it's up 1,000,000%, chances are it's probably got a long shelf life on it. If it launched, 3 weeks ago and it went up, a bunch and then crashed back down -99%, there's not a lot of confidence in that market at that point. And that's a different kind of game. So like, it's very important to distinguish, is this like an investment idea or is this a trading idea? Because like, I think a lot of times people conflate those things or mix those things up. So like, they don't know if they're buying a coin because they think it's a good long-term play or because they think it's a good flip. And so it's okay to buy something with less merit that's brand new, because you just don't know, because of the risk reward of very big returns in a short amount of time if you get out right. But that comes with, like, you have to actively manage that position, right? You have to actively kind of monitor what's going on there, and you have to treat that like a trade more until it's established itself in the marketplace, has a lot more users, a lot more liquidity, stable volume, and those types of things. So longer term investments would be, stuff that's went up a lot, came down a lot, went up a lot, came down a lot, been around for a couple of years. Like, I'm very proud of our ecosystem, of course. There's a handful of charts out there, coins, tokens, communities, football teams, if you will, that have proven themselves in the face of adversity and have continued to overperform the core token price. And that's important, because if you're coming in from the outside, one thing you might think about is like, well, I want to know how to make my dollars multiply. But inside the deep inner workings of the blockchain, the real game is, how do I get more pulse? How do I get more core token value? And so I think being able to like understand how the game is played and what's important for long-term success, and start asking the right questions, would help you understand why a coin may or may not have merit over another.
And more so, the value lies in the community and the network effect.
Perfect. Yes. That the more people that are participating in it, the bigger the community, the louder the community, the more that there's this like kind of like religious belief system about it, or like fan base, like like the best football teams have huge fan bases, right? And they're very vocal and loud, like the Dallas Cowboys.
Or the Patriots, they're very do or die. I mean,
yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean that these football teams have to win the Super Bowl every year. They just have to have this strong underlying current of energy, because everything is energy, especially money. So if your community really believes and is out there and working, like that is going to be something that's going to be more attractive than something that's completely quiet. And of course, with the network effect, at large, like there's different matters and means by which you can amplify that. And I use the example of, MySpace was like the first big social network on the internet, one of them anyway. But it ran into roadblocks along the way. And it was because they were unwilling to grow and amplify the network effect. And partly why Facebook has been done so well is like they keep adding more utility and safeguards and tools, and for doing so, and they also make it so that you get to compare and contrast your profile with other people's, what you offer, what your life is like with other people. And this allows people to relate to each other, connect with each other, compare to each other. And the more connections that you can get in a monetary sense on a blockchain or on a social network, it's the same effect. It's the network effect. It's just about finding creative ways to amplify that. And so leading into the question of, what happens when the chain explodes in price value and starts to slow down, and how do you maintain that? Like, it's really not an important question right now because of the setup on Pulse Chain and how big this could get. We're so far away from capped out that it's like not even a question right now. Like we are so small There's less than like 15,000 users per day. Like, talk to me when we got like 1 million users per day, and then the price is going to be so much higher that then we can talk about that kind of question.
Yeah, it's like Facebook is the biggest marketplace for attention, but DeFi itself undergoes the same principles. How much mind share can you capture? And I think once the marketing starts to ramp up, and once we get put on the big stage, it's going to be very evident where the value lies. And it's going to take some. It's going to take some resiliency. I mean, we're in the middle of the summer over here, so I mean, we're nowhere close to where we need to be, and time's not. The job's not finished.
Yeah. So, and we, just historically, crypto doesn't do that well in the summer normally. Like, it usually picks back up in August or September. So we're in a summer lull period where crypto's not really supposed to be moving. Now, it's been choppy lately. Actually, I've been quite impressed with Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, for anybody that's listening in that's kind of new to this kind of information, Bitcoin is the most important, and then Ether, and maybe XRP second and third. Like, and just from the matter of like, if they're not moving, there's no chance that the altcoin markets are really going to move. There are like some side plays, which is more like, again, that short-term trading or flipping, or like a new technology comes out and it explodes for 3 months, and then it has a slowdown period and it completely overperforms. And finding those kinds of opportunities is a completely different conversation from investing in Pulse Chain here now, because Pulse Chain is a fork of Ethereum. It's established. It's got a ton of value bricked into it, and it's just waiting for the larger market to take off, basically. Like, so that's why I come back to like, when you're coming in and you're actually going to start playing the game or participating in Pulse Chain, you really do need to watch Bitcoin and ETH, because Pulse Chain's a proxy to those. Meaning, if ETH isn't looking that good, like, Pulse Chain's not going to crazily overperform for any reason that we can predict. If it were to do that, it would be something that you couldn't predict. It'd be unexpected, right? So I think that in and of itself is one reason why people get into Hex and Pulse Chain and they stay in, is because they just don't know when that day is going to come where there's a huge price increase, and a lot of people don't want to get left behind. But generally speaking, if you're a large player, like, you're looking to bring multi-millions into Pulse Chain, you can do that slowly over time and get a better and better price for now. And even as it starts to move off its lows, like, once, you'll still be opportunities to buy dips on the way up. So it's not going to be straight vertical for, straight up, like, where there won't be a chance to buy a better price. Like, there's going to be big rips and big dips, and that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I mean, volatility is the price you pay for massive gains. And things have been very volatile lately. I mean, on the charts, sentiment-wise, people don't know how to keep their panties in a bunch. It's kind of funny to see, like, people act out, but it's like, I think people entered the game with such high expectations that because we're not there yet, people are just losing patience. But I mean, I get it.
Yeah, and understandably so, because a lot of the things that the founder talked about, in the years prior to Pulse Chain launching, it didn't work. And that's okay. Like, he's not perfect either, right? And the market hasn't done what past cycles have done. Like, for Bitcoin, again, remember that everything's a function of what Bitcoin's doing, because effectively there's this idea that it's all just one coin with shared liquidity. I don't care what blockchain you're on. I don't care what. The network effect is important. A dollar coming into crypto is net positive for everybody, no matter where you're at. We just want to see more dollars coming into blockchain. Yeah. So Hans says, what do you guys think about RH call to action about importing containers? Is it time for mega marketing? Yeah, we can. If you want to bring that tweet up, we can talk a little bit about that.
Oh, let me pull up the X account. I'm not sharing the screen.
It is the most interesting thing that he's been talking about in a long time, I think.
I mean, he has been getting a little bit louder than normal, so we can expect something to happen. I think as we enter Q3, there's going to be some type of scenery change. It's hard to say exactly what it's going to be, but I don't think it's just I don't think it's shipping containers. Hold on,
Yeah,
let me
well,
see.
so we'll see what there's some crazy theories going around right now. Obviously, somebody is putting up an initiative to ship some sort of physical thing around the world. Now, he's been talking about postcards for all year long, basically, about shipping direct mail.
Where's
And
this? Where's this at? Was it yesterday?
Yeah, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, this is part 2 of it. See, he says, community member needs to know, time to hit the phones again. What large fulfillment or bulk mailing company
Sorry.
can turn 40-foot containers full of free electronic gifts into mail globally? So that to me, and some of the speculation going around, that to me tells me that somebody's getting ready to ship out wallets. I don't, some sort of, it's digital. There's another post in here talking about this, or no, here in this post, he talks about the CR 2025 battery. This is like, this to me screams like he's like, whoever's behind this, they're about to deliver hardware wallets to hundreds of thousands of people. Now, do I know that to be a fact? No, but this would make sense that if you send all these things out to people and you airdrop the world's largest airdrop physically to people, whether they claim it or not, that's just more eyes on it. And then those who do claim it, let's say they'd ship out 1 million and 100,000 people claim it, meaning they scan the QR code and now they have a personal wallet with some coins in it, and it takes them to a page where you can look at the chart, and then all of a sudden the market makers start sending the chart up and they're watching their balances go up. This is like a repeat of the Staker app in 2020 and 2021, where everybody was looking at their Staker app and refreshing it and screenshotting it and sending it to their friends and sending it to their family. This is going to be like a mega amplified version of that, if it is that, right?
Okay, but what if the message is not physical? What if it's a big green chart that surpasses big gains and he's streaming again? And you got.
Well,
I get the point.
Happen.
Yeah, I mean, I get what he's trying to do here. He's trying to stir the pot a little bit. But what if the message is not physical shipping containers? What if it's blocks and green charts? That's one way to definitely get people to look over.
It can be anything that gets people to understand that Pulse Chain exists and Hex exists and they're real and they have value. Then anything that happens on the chart after that is going to be amplified. Like, what good is it if the chart pumps 10,000x in 6 months, but only 100,000 people saw it? It's just not that enticing. It's not going to draw money into the chain. But if you can capture the attention of a few million people because, you sent out 10 million, 20 million, or even 50 million electronic gifts, and then you even capture just 1 million people, let's say, that's 900,000 more eyes than the 100,000 that would have seen the chart move on its own, because we're in a kind of a bubble. And this is a way to punch through and break out past the bubble of people that are here every day and they're experts on Pulse Chain. Like, those guys are experts in their little realm, and they're trading against each other, and they're participating, and they're creating value of their own. But we want to see the world come into this sphere and adopt it. And the only way to do that is to get the message out as the chart's going parabolic. It's got to be like a 1-2 punch. Like, more people have to see it and hear about it and know about it before we just start printing green candles, because otherwise you're just going to run into the same thing that happened with Hex 1.0, which was the guys that got in the first 6 months got paid dividends by everybody else that got in for the last 5 years, basically 4.5 years or whatever. Like, there's certain accounts that comes to mind that have just taken, 15 million, 20 million, 30 million, $50 million out of our ecosystem and never brought it back yet. And they're just guys that got in early. They got in that first 6-month period before the first 100x. And I don't know how good they were for the longevity of the system. It seems that in some cases they were for a time, and then in other cases they just lost it or haven't been since. And so it's more about flushing out all that old money and bringing in tons of new eyes and resetting the table so that it's more of like an equal playing field as we go into this next wave. And if you remember Bitcoin, the Bitcoin chart, the biggest cycle wasn't in terms of adoption, wasn't the first or second cycle. It was the third cycle in 2017 when we really started to see Bitcoin go crazy from $160 low up to $20,000. That's where we saw the crazy amount of adoption. And I think Richard knows that. I think the market makers that are potentially doing this marketing initiative know that they have a really good shot here to reset the table here with EHEX down here at 1/10 of a penny or as 2/10 of a penny. And then the pulse chain stuff with like being so low in price, like it's a good area to give for people to get in at a fair price before things just go parabolic. And then we run into the same problem again where, a couple thousand people control the entire network effect. We want it so that there's like hundreds of thousands of people in at the bottom so that not any one player can control the network effect and do what happened over the past few years.
Well, I mean, with Bitcoin hovering around 105 and diminishing gains every cycle, it definitely seems like this opportunity that we have right now it's not one to just scoff at.
Yeah. So with Bitcoin's diminishing gains and increasing liquidity, so it's a perplexing topic because even though Bitcoin goes up slower now in terms of percent returns per year than it did in the early days, it also has just a parabolic amount of an exponential amount, I should say, of liquidity coming into it every day. Like billions and billions and billions of dollars are flowing in and out. And like, I think I read somewhere that over like trillions of dollars were settled on the Bitcoin blockchain last year. Trillions of dollars were settled on the Bitcoin blockchain last year. That is crazy. That is real. And so
last year,
I believe so. I believe so. Yep. And so you play that forward for a chain like Ethereum, and we're just a copy of Ethereum. Like Ethereum's still getting its bearings before it makes its next big paradigm shift, basically, where Ethereum, because you got to think, Ethereum has spent so long, like the gains are better on Ethereum than they're on Bitcoin once we break the all-time high, straight up. That's just how it is. It's because it's a smaller market cap. And so it takes less economic energy to really move the price in a big way. And ETH is still being legitimized, and it's improving from a technological level. And gas fees are so affordable now, and it's doing record levels of transactions. Like today, Gwei on Ethereum is 2.2. In the last cycle, we were paying like 150 Gwei, 300 Gwei to end a stake, and this is like 78x less, like in Gwei terms. And so like the improvements are coming to Ethereum, and the big money is coming to Ethereum and accumulating it right now. That's all verifiable on chain. And when you look at any of these smart people on Twitter, they're talking about how much BlackRock and other big companies are accumulating. That's going to lead to like expansive price growth. Now, not as good as like, it'll be better than Bitcoin, but it won't be as good as what Pulse Chain is capable of. So with this idea of diminishing returns, like people are going to seek a place where they can earn faster and higher returns, and that would be something like Pulse Chain as a lever on top of Ethereum, which will overperform Bitcoin.
Okay, so with the resolve to be able to look past the FUD, that's what defines us and makes us be able to find success in the DeFi realm. How do you address the FUD?
I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it's been like super easy to ignore all the negativity, but what it has been is almost like a confirmation that the bad will come to an end, because at some point, like, you're just not seeing the community wither away. It changes, the faces come and they go, but the on-chain activity still is there, and there's still coins that are up crazy high. I mean, I don't even need to name drop all of them, just crazy high versus Pulse. And for that, you know that you have holders and communities there that believe and that are invested in this ecosystem and are building on it and want to see it succeed. And that's goes back to the community and the network effect. And I'm not talking about the guys on Twitter that complain. I'm talking about the guys that, and ladies for that matter, that are quiet, that they don't say anything, that are building and they're secretly accumulating. And it's been hard to show this to the people we want to get in right now, but that'll get easier as like the marketing effect and the initial market makers start to make the initial move on the price charts. Things were completely different sentiment wise when we were at the local high last March. Like everybody thought we were going to go so high at that point, you know, and it was very loud on Twitter and we were getting loud, and it was like a test pump to see, you know, if we put $50 million into the chain, you know, how loud can we get? And we were pretty freaking loud. So the cheerleaders will come back as soon as the prices come back, and the prices will come back as soon as it's time. And what makes it time is when Ethereum looks ready to go and break its all-time high, and when this marketing effort gets out there and in the wild, you know, among other things that are working in the background to maybe build up some momentum. Maybe there's a second movie that comes out. Yeah, there can be a lot of bullish factors that play into it. It's hard to know all of the off-chain catalysts that are going to create the whirlwind that was the Hex 20 and Hex 2021 bull market. But I think we're going to get that and more this time, just because of how Bitcoin and Ethereum second cycles went. They were bigger and more massive and more explosive because you got in way more people on the second rip. Once people know that Richard Hart's not done for sure, like, and they're seeing it on the price chart, they're going to pile in. And I think like the guy from Morales Money, who am I talking about?
Oh man,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I forgot his name.
Yeah, he talks about how he wants Pulse Chain to be up past SAC rate and starting to create support floors before he buys back in a big way. This was like months ago. Ivan on Tech.
Ivan, yeah.
He talks about, you know, he wants confirmation. And so does a lot of people in crypto, because a lot of people in crypto that are outside of Pulse Chain have made a shitload of money on other blockchains, and they're just sitting on their stables, or they're sitting on their Bitcoin or their ETH as stores of value. And they're not going to deploy it into anything until there's confirmation that the trend is solid and they're going to go higher.
It is the wrong time to be sitting in stables. Because if we were to look at previous cycles, and we know that Q3 is where things really start amping up, the smart money should be buying now. That's why you see these institutions loading up now. But you see a lot of people still sitting in stables because they're uncertain. And, you know, some people refer to crypto as the greatest video game ever played, but we're not playing with fictional characters. We're playing this game with our well-being and our own money. So how can we help those understand the importance of that? Is that why people are sitting in stables? Because they're looking for safety?
Well, I don't know how many people are sitting in stables. I think there's more and more stables being printed every day, and that's being allocated to big things like Ethereum and Bitcoin. Like if you look at like the Tether market cap, that thing's just going up. Every time that Bitcoin takes a big dip, Tether prints more Tether. That's a USD stablecoin equivalent for those that don't know. And then that gets deployed, and that makes a new support floor on Bitcoin price or on ETH. You know, so I think, you know, retail people, like people that don't have multi millions in the financial markets, yeah, they're going to be sitting in stables until they know it's a sure thing. So they want confirmation as well. And then you got other crazies like me and you that are like all, you know, fully invested in volatile assets because you just believe and you know that you don't want to miss the boat, right? So it's like there's different strategies for different folks. You know, it's part of that is deciding, you know, if you want to find yield on chain to try to mitigate downside pressure while you're in this stuff. But that's another discussion altogether. Some people like their stables and they like earning their 12% on a lending platform or and I'm talking a decentralized one so that it's safer. But people get the price that they earn. Like, people that miss Ethereum, before it goes to like 4,600 and then blasts off, they earned that because they weren't there working for the last 2.5 years buying these dips. It's a long game. Like, crypto goes up forever versus the dollar, and it's a long game. But when the real moves happen, you were either in or you weren't, and that doesn't mean that you're out. Like, you can still find the next dip and capture that, which is why I'm such a huge fan of DCA. I think dollar cost averaging on big red days is like one of the smartest things you can do in crypto.
I know some people are a little uncertain and they feel like they're going crazy, but as you go up the risk curve, you have to know that it comes with a little more instability. But the higher the risk curve you go, the bigger the reward, and especially on those red days.
Yeah, and like if you've committed to putting money into crypto because you believe in it, I think fundamentally your question really revolved around why are we doing this, and why we're doing this is because the old financial system did not serve the public. It was a means to get to corporatize and create more open, and it was an attempt to make a more open and fair market where businesses could be created and prosperity could occur across like many nations. And that was like a push toward globalism. Now we have globalism in a new form. It's called blockchain, and it's free and borderless and open, and anybody can be a part of it. And anybody can send or receive this stuff at any time, and nobody owns any of it. We just have the knowledge of the keys to get in the doorway, right, for each particular wallet. And so that's a whole paradigm shifting technology. That's why we're here, is because it's a new form of technology that changes man's relationship with their money, with their time, and with their government, so that governments no longer can hold over the public's head money creation. And now there's a free and open way to do that. And that's what made Richard's fight against the SEC so important, was because it basically opened up the doorway for DeFi to exist on its own as an open and free market. And so, anybody that creates tokens over on Pulse Chain, those are free, open markets that anybody can produce, and anybody can be the market maker over here. And that's got power all in and of itself. So that's like the bottom line of why we're in this stuff, is because it's 24/7, 365, no off switch, no middlemen, no borders, global, financial services. Basically, it's a very, very powerful technology. And regardless of price, that's not going away, because the incentive structures are aligned in such a way that people aren't going to stop running their validators. People aren't going to stop running their Bitcoin miners. Those networks will perpetually produce inflation to support the network for as long as we'll be alive. So everything's in place, and it's just a matter of getting the attention of the rest of the world and getting them involved.
It's a good time for it. It's a good time to keep building. I mean, that's what makes us a little different. Is through this max pain, we're still here.
Yep. Yeah, man. We're not going away. I mean, you can't kill the blockchain. The users can all go away, but even now at these prices, the users haven't left. So what does that say about the power of the blockchain? Pulse Chain's pretty awesome.
It means we're not forcing it. So whenever the economic power does come, Pulse Chain's power will actually be revealed. When you try to force something, it doesn't always work out well. But I think the slow roll is starting to pick up momentum, and we're starting to see, we're starting to have a little bit more faith. I think everybody's starting to believe a little bit more, and it's kind of hard to look the other way when RH is tweeting as often as he is now.
There's definitely been an uptick in Richard tweets lately, which is making me feel a little bit better too. For one reason or another, he's getting ready. That July 6th date is not that far away. We're just
2 more weeks.
Yeah, legit. We got 7, 8, 9. we're 10 days away from the 7th is on a Monday. So on Monday the 7th, not that anything has to happen on that particular day, but we're already starting to see an increase in activity and more of a glimpse inside his mind on what he's thinking and seeing.
Yeah.
And that's motivating.
Yeah, that's why it's important for these streamers to keep streaming. That's why it's important for us to stay loud. Because people need to hear this. People need to know what it takes to win. And the mindset is more important than the monetary value. Because what are you going to do when you get that money? You gotta have a plan when you come in, you gotta have a plan when you get out. And I think his little uptick here is preparing the crowd a little bit more. I think people are starting to actually realize, like, hey, it's our turn. Because we saw what Solana did last year, and they haven't recovered. Memes don't fly the way they do, and you see ETH being revived with memes starting to run a little bit more, and ETH getting a little more attention, and that's just a precursor to what's coming to Pulse Chain.
100%, man. That's perfect. Yeah, I think you're saying exactly what needs to be said, which is that everyone can feel that our time is coming. You can tell that through the rhetoric and through the messaging, and you can see it on both sides, on the good sentiment and the bad sentiment, right? The bad sentiment is at its worst that I've ever seen it, and the good sentiment is like, wow, we actually are still here, and we actually it seems like there's a plan now. Like we're getting some insights into what the plan might be. We're talking like the quote in quotes like the largest marketing push ever seen in crypto. That's a bold claim.
What's your take on his millionaires?
Well, earlier in the stream, we talked a little bit about my speculation on what this marketing push could be, and what better way to get 1 million people involved than by sending out, multiple millions of hardware wallets to people, or just a flyer that says, hey, this exists, scan this QR code. And then and then it takes them to the chart, and then there's Richard pumping the chart, or market maker pumping the chart like crazy. It's like, well, and then you get videos of all these hexagons at all these world meetups all across the world talking about, just celebrating, all these years of build up. Right. So I'm excited to see what happens, man. I don't have all the answers, but I could tell you that in the charts, that all of the charts versus Pulse look good. Like everything is going up versus Pulse right now, which means when Pulse finally does turn around in a big way, the whole chain is going to explode in value. Yeah, all of the alts on top of it.
All right. So Hans is asking, what's your take on the nonprofit organization tweets?
That'd be a good question for Vets in crypto. He runs a 503c, 50c, yeah, whatever. He runs one of those, and so he would know more about what that might mean. It might mean that the marketing materials are given for free to the nonprofits to distribute as a way to do it legally, right? So that there's no incurred costs beyond just the cost to produce whatever their marketing materials are, and then to hand deliver them as a gift to the nonprofit. And then the nonprofit's duty then is to deliver them out to the world.
So are the nonprofits the middleman in carrying the message?
Effectively, that's what it would seem like, yes.
Are us as streamers nonprofits in a way?
Well, I guess it depends on if your channel's monetized or not.
No, mine isn't. I don't care if it is, but these things need to be said, and this message needs to be communicated. So it's an interesting time that we're in for sure.
I don't monetize my YouTube either. I think I'm out here spreading the message, and if I spread the message right, it reflects itself in my holdings, right? So like if I'm doing right by the community and sharing valuable information, then token prices will rise, right? Because people will understand the value that's here. So, I mean, the community is the power source. And the power source gets filled up with gas when the chain pumps, and the chain pumps when the marketing materials are out there and the eyes are on it, and then it becomes this like self-feeding loop of hype, and then you get a bull cycle, and I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I've been saying this for the past couple of weeks. You know, he has this notion of a million millionaires, but I think it's more so a million leaders ready to take this further. You know, you got to think about some of the people that make their money. They go off and they become pharmaceutical reps. You know, they sell medicine, and not the good kind of medicines. It's like, what about the people that are going to take the holistic route and sell lifestyles and sell the message in a positive way instead of trying to run off greed?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's something that I was very proud to talk about in the last bull cycle. And this happened with Hex in the early days. I remember there was a story of a Hexakin that I think pulled out 1 or 2 million, somewhere between there. I think it was around 2 million. And they opened a veterinary clinic in an area in need with a lot of stray animals. And so they just opened it up, and look, that's some good that came out of Hex, right? The real world good that came out of Hex, because Richard can't open a veterinary clinic on his own, or dozens of them even, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't scale right. But what does scale right is cryptocurrency. And then it allows the world to use those resources for what they see fit. And then you only hope that the majority of people that do well off this bull cycle put their resources into meaningful endeavors. And that's kind of like what you're getting at, is like, you know, and I know a lot of them, you know, I think in the first Hex cycle, it attracted a lot of the wrong types of people because of the way it was marketed. But in this cycle, I can only hope that we attract the right people because of the way it's marketed.
Yeah, it's like on one spectrum, on one side of the spectrum, you have greed, and on the other side, you have freedom and fulfillment. You know, I came into crypto, I wanted to make a whole lot of money, but now I realize that just being financially free and the knowledge itself will take us further than a quick come up. And you see a lot of people chase that quick come up, and they'll lose it just that fast as well.
100%. So it's about the education, right? That's what I pride myself on with accessalive.com, is literally, whether it's the platform or the token, like the whole point was to teach my members and the larger community. I mean, a lot of this stuff I give out for free on YouTube streams, like about the power of the blockchain and how to read it, how to understand the data, how to understand the metrics, how to do chain analysis, how to understand the market at large, and then how to improve your life, like spiritually, mentally, and physically, because ultimately finance is only one aspect of your being. Like, it's important. It's a key component of security, which allows you to be mentally strong and stable, and to have the willpower spiritually to work through physical challenges, for example. Like, you know, money and resources are an amplifier. So, but if you're not right with yourself in those other ways, you're not going to be able to use the resources in the right way, and your life won't get better for it. Like, you'll make mistakes and, you know, potentially squander a great opportunity for you or your whole family and your legacy. Like, so it's important to like educate people on all of the different aspects of this, because think about how the nature of technology makes human life better, if especially the good stuff. Like,
well, sometimes we get lost in the data and forget to use the tools in a way that is supposed to be helpful. And you know, that's where analysis by paralysis comes in. And that's where some of us, you know, we kind of stop ourselves from reaching our potential. But the tools are here. And it's important for us to show others how to use those tools properly.
Yeah, and to build like a human relationship, a human element, so that it's not just, you know, me looking at my screen competing with a bunch of other people on the other side of the world looking at their screen. Like, that PvP mindset doesn't doesn't amplify the network effect, does not make the blockchain more powerful. Coming together as a community and being part of something bigger than yourself is what this is really all about in the end, and taking power back from the few and giving it back to the many. Like the ability for the world governments to produce currency, but no single individual can. I mean, it was technology that was good for its time, but now that we're in a new time and a new paradigm, there's a better way to do money now, and it's fair and it's unstoppable.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
mean,
powerful.
the governments can print. Why can't we?
So, I look at all this stuff, and it really boils back down to, being excited for life. And what makes me excited is that there's a way to improve people's lives through the blockchain. And that when they experience that parabolic rise in price of the coins, and they're watching their net worth go up and up and up, that can overflow into their body, their mind, and their spirit, and allow them to tap into and unlock things inside of them that they didn't even know were there.
And some people called me crazy. Some people said that the show was unnecessary, but it's like, I want to help the degen that does not have any direction. I want to help the guy that has doubt, because that's where I find fulfillment, is actually helping somebody find a way. But with that being said, what's the hardest thing that you've come across in terms of these unforgiving environments? Because, I mean, you've been around since for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before Hex.
I think just broadly speaking, a lot of lessons were learned through Hex in both directions, on the upside and the downside. But even before that, like when I was in Bitcoin mining, that industry was so competitive, and it was so hard to keep up with infrastructure costs and hardware costs and server costs, and the amount of effort and work it took to fix and maintain your facility, and to keep the facility cool and not from overheating and not blowing out fuses. And I mean, the work never ends. You don't just get to, I mean, there's very few people that got into crypto and got in and got out and kept everything. There's a lot of people that got in, rode things up, and rode them all the way back down. And there's very few people that got in early and it just kept it forever, and now their life has completely changed. And I really do recommend to people, like, when you get into this game, you're getting into it for a decade or more, because it's just really about accumulation and winning the war of attrition, while everyone else fails and stops and quits and doesn't work anymore and doesn't put in the effort. They get left behind by the guys that stuck with it and adapted and changed and evolved. And it's, and that's many faceted, man, because the industry is very, very big.
Is that where you found the bright light in Hex, because it kind of replaced the overhead cost of the mining concept?
I think Hex was cool as a way of creating passive income. But the reality is that a lot of that passive income is so far off into the future that, like, it doesn't really free you up necessarily now. You got to continue to play that game long term. So it's just a different component. Like, instead of giving up your hours on a day-to-day and working on your servers and your data center, like, now it's more like I have to delay gratification for long enough to see a return that's meaningful. And that's just a completely different type of passive income, I guess. So obviously, maybe less obvious is just that obviously the Hex staking mechanic, like, completely changed cryptocurrency forever. Like, so many protocols adopted staking after that, and many companies sprung up and said that they could do it better, and then they went bankrupt. And so there's something really special about Hex in that regard, that it can't die or go away, and that with any bit of network effect or adoption, the returns can be absolutely ridiculous over the long term for like Hex, for example.
Yeah, but
And
it's also about the units, not about the price.
right, until we get that hype cycle, and then like the strategies will evolve, right? So it's cool because it's so dynamic that the strategies evolve over time for something like that. So, you know, Bitcoin mining is not going away. Ethereum staking isn't going away. Pulse chain validating isn't going away, and hex staking isn't going away. They all serve a purpose. They all have their place in the broader industry. And you know, you just kind of have to choose the one that's right for you. And you know, be excited because this stuff's the passive and the DeFi is evolving away from simple token contracts, and it's getting into, especially on Pulse Chain, like there's just so many new forms of passive income that have become up now. That I think it's a little bit beyond the scope of this talk to get into all the specifics, but just that Hex was like opening Pandora's box. And so if you're in on the ground floor on Hex, you're in on like the OG, you know, pumpamental tokenomic coin, like the first one that invented tokenomics, right? In a big way. Back when we didn't really understand why anything that wasn't proof of work would have any value at all. Now we can see it because it's in the community and the substrate and like the code, right? That's where the value is. And the price is just a reflection of the network effect ultimately long term. So,
and the products will remain on chain, but people's strategies will evolve. Mm-hmm. The trenches will evolve, and everybody's plans will change. But you have to move as fast as crypto does, because it's like every month something changes, mm-hmm. whether it be certain metrics, certain sentiments, certain news. We're breaking free from TradFi at such a fast rate that the evolution is going to come no matter what. It's going to be required.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's almost like the two worlds are getting absorbed into one, but at the same time, DeFi is still trying to pull away and break away from even the legal structure and even the technical structure. Like DeFi is its own kind of thing. It's a true DeFi, but at the same time, like TradFi and cryptocurrency are being absorbed into one financial system ultimately, and TradFi is going to have to sacrifice a lot of the control structure in order to become part of DeFi, and DeFi is going to get a lot more bridges back to TradFi, which will make real world use of this stuff a lot easier and better and more simplified, which is good.
Change the money, change the world, right?
My man.
Access, where can we find you, man?
Yeah, man. Just if you're interested in more about me, go to accessalive.com. I run like a membership group over there where I do daily updates on the Pulse chain mainly, but I do like to look at the macro picture, talk about the markets.
Hold on, I'm gonna go ahead and pin it in the comments here. Accessalive.com.
And then
you have it in your.
And last November, my dev team launched its first token contract add-on for the Access token. And that's at accessalive.app. So I'm very proud of that because it's the most transparent dashboard for understanding leagues in the Access and Alive tokens. And it shows all the inflation and deflation and all these different metrics if you like to dig into the data. And I have very high hopes for those tokens long term, but I don't really show them too much because I think that their performance speaks for itself. And I really get behind the SolidX guys over there in that dev team. So there's a very close, tight knit partnership between SolidX and Access long term, and that is the most liquid. I got to say this is because it's important for people to know that is the most liquid non-Richard ticker that's paired with Richard tickers. So I think there's like somewhere in the order of like $14 to $16 million of liquidity between SolidX and then like Inc, PulseX, Hex, and Pulse. So it is effectively a Richard ticker with less liabilities that tends to overperform them. Anyways, you can find me. If you want to message me directly, it's on Telegram. It's t.me/accessalive. Make sure you say something in the first few lines that makes me know that you're human, because I usually just delete those. So if you really do want to contact me, make sure that you say something that'll catch my attention. Otherwise, on Twitter, always posting charts intermittently and very spicy tweets. X.com/Axis Live. So thanks, man, for having me on.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I watch you and Crispy a lot, and in all the streams that you're on. So yeah, I appreciate you. Appreciate your time. This has been a great hour. We got to talk about a lot, and I hope to bring you back on one day so we can revisit some of these topics and maybe go in depth on some other things.
My man. Hey, keep up the good work, and good luck to you on your streaming journey.
Yes, sir.
It's the beginning of good things, my man.
I appreciate it, man. You have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon for sure.
All right, God bless you, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Guys, that was Access Alive, episode 4, Merit in the Trenches. Stay tuned. We got a lot more coming. A lot of good stuff on the way. And if you're not DCAing, man, you better get out of those stables. Let's rock and roll, man. Blockhead out.
Yeah, from the block to the blockchain. I yield farm and I mean trade. On Pulse Chain, I just DCA the block for the DeFi. Shout out to the whole gang. From the block to the blockchain. I yield farm and I mean trade. On Pulse Chain, I just DCA the block for the DeFi. Shout out to the whole